What happens when the essential rhythm of a world, the fundamental law of its existence, is not merely paused, but violently shattered? This is the central, agonizing mystery of Lorwyn-Shadowmoor, a plane defined by an ancient, cataclysmic duality. For eons, this realm was governed by the Great Aurora, a magical convergence that would shift the entire world between its two opposing aspects in predictable intervals of approximately 300 years. In its daytime aspect, it was Lorwyn, a world of idyllic meadows and verdant forests, where the sun sat high in the sky and summer never ends. Humble granges dot the countryside, and hamlets foster community among different species. The known and tamed expanse of Lorwyn has historically been known as the Blessed Nation, a term that fell out of favour with the advent of the Pendulum Year, while the areas beyond are known as the Primal Beyond. When the Aurora struck, it shifted completely into Shadowmoor, a land of dark and mysterious forests and brambles, pitched in eternal night, where the moon cycles endlessly through a cool, spectral dark. Great monuments of stone lie covered in moss, carved with symbols of civilizations long since unmade. The land teems with danger, but the mysteries that lurk within seduce even the most cautious minds. This haunting environment overflows with wild magic, a deep well of power that anyone can draw upon, though its chaotic and volatile nature risks catastrophic backlashes. But the great cycle was broken. When we last looked upon this plane, Oona, the queen and mother of all fairies who had usurped control of the Great Aurora, was defeated and destroyed, and her control over the cycle of day and night had ended. Her meddling and her eventual downfall ended her command over the cosmic gears, fundamentally breaking something essential about the plane, or perhaps finally fixing a clogged pipe or greasing a long jammed wheel. The result, in either case, was the same. The two aspects did not merely separate or cease. They began to bleed into one another, day into night and night into day, in a constant, grinding clash. The land was blanketed in a chaotic, perpetual flux, colouring it like a marbled cake whose white and black tones swelled endlessly across the topography. For the very first time in its history, the people of this world were forced to live beside an aspect of their own plane that felt both profoundly alien and unsettlingly familiar. This new, chaotic state is known as the Pendulum Year. Here, a sunlit, meandering path in Lorwyn might give way with agonizing slowness to a gnarled, impenetrable darkness characteristic of Shadowmoor. Conversely, thorny, moonlit brambles might recede and instantly transform into flowering, bright green bushes. These borders, known simply as auroras, are the plane's new, unstable law. They can shift slowly, keeping balance between day and night. But the danger of sudden transformation still threatens anyone close to them. Sometimes these borders will grow or shrink without rhyme or reason, as a way for the plane to naturally correct imbalances in power, influence, or size. This bleeding world is a place of profound psychological peril. Stepping across the boundary into the opposing aspect is an eventide, crossing to Shadowmoor, or a morning tide, crossing to Lorwyn, and both induce an immediate, catastrophic change. Native-born creatures of the plane have two forms, and to cross the threshold is to transform into their counterpart, a version of themselves with darkly reflected memories of their prior life that are inaccurate and strangely shifted. Their true memories of their other self become murky and muddled, like a faint, frustrating itch they cannot reach in the back of their minds. This is the painful truth. Even if they desired to know their other self, they would lose the life they know in the process. Where the tension between Lorwyn and Shadowmoor is greatest, new environments emerge, the Eclipsed Realms. These are a terrifying third state, attempting to resolve the chiral relationship between the two aspects across a different dimensional axis. Here, the sun and moon float high in the sky, locked in place as an unmoving mirror. In every shadow, there are beacons of light, and in each sunbeam there are wells of deep darkness. Within these otherworldly domains, transformation is slow, but permanent. Denizens retain all memories of both aspects, but as they remain, the internal contradictions between their two selves cannot resolve. These eclipsed creatures slowly lose their desires, emotions, and connection to the world, eventually transforming into silent, stony husks known as calciform creatures, ceasing movement entirely. As a consequence of Oona's downfall and the subsequent merge, two titanic forces awoke from the firmament to manage the ensuing chaos. Eirdu, the incarnation of the sun and Lorwyn, and Isilu, the incarnation of the moon and Shadowmoor. These massive beings wander the plane, the land changing beneath their very footfalls. While one is meant to be awake, the other is meant to slumber, awaiting their turn at balancing the raw power of the two aspects. Eirdu, the living embodiment of Lorwyn, is a symbol of the sun. Its presence is rejuvenating for both the body and spirit, bringing with it the gentle warmth of spring. Its worshippers, the adherents of the sun, seek to convert the entire plane into Lorwyn, wearing sunburst motifs and gathering for the festival of idle glare, where they erect pyres atop ancient dolmens and feed the flames with crops and valued heirlooms. Isilu, the living embodiment of Shadowmoor, is a symbol of the moon. Its presence brings a calming silence and the gentle chill of autumn, filling those near it with deep understanding. Its worshippers, the adherents of the moon, seek to convert the entire plane into Shadowmoor. They hold sacred vigils over their dead buried beneath massive stone structures, honouring all who rest there regardless of species or creed. With the emergence of Eirdu and Isilu, to combat the inevitability of the plane's transformation, the people have fashioned reliquaries of dawn and twilight from pieces of these colossal incarnations. A reliquary allows a person to retain their physical form and memories between aspects. These sacred, rare items are the distilled essence of either Lorwyn or Shadowmoor. To resist the eventide, one must carry a reliquary of dawn, fashioned from a piece of Eirdu. To resist the morning tide, one must carry a reliquary of twilight, fashioned from a piece Isilu. It is said that possessing both allows one to traverse even the dangerous Eclipsed Realms unchanged. The plane's history is a story of three defining eras, each marked by monumental conflict. Millennia ago, the Faerie Queen Oona began using the Great Aurora to preserve her own memories and body, locking the plane into centuries-long cycles to maintain her tyrannical control. This tyranny lasted until the Great Mending 40 years ago disrupted the cycle's stability, forcing the final cataclysmic shift. Fearing the loss of her memories, Oona created a duplicate of the Mornsong elf, Marilyn, instilling it with a piece of her soul. This duplicate, however, gained sentience and became the unwitting focal point of a growing coalition against the Queen. The true mastermind behind Oona's downfall was Kolfanor, the last Yew, one of the few beings who knew Oona's scheme. Kolfanor set the pieces in motion to defeat her, training the elf Rhys in Yew poison magic, and manipulating the flamekin Aisling to draw out a greater fire elemental's power. When the final Aurora hit, the transformation turned Aisling into Aisling, the Extinguisher, a creature of pure, destructive rage. Meanwhile, the Kithkin Brigid held Sig's Crescent of Morningtide, a royal Merrow heirloom, which protected her from the shift, making her one of the few to retain her Lorwyn memories. Marilyn stole control of the Vendilion clique from Oona, starting a fairy civil war and joined forces with Brigid. Ultimately, Marilyn used the collective powers of Aisling and Brigid's amulet to kill Oona. Though Oona's body was destroyed, her consciousness remains hidden, slowly recovering strength. Marilyn took on the mantle of Queen of the Fae, binding herself to Rhys with a death pact. If Oona ever shows signs of returning, Rhys must end Marilyn's life with deadly moonglow, a task that grants Rhys a forced immortality until that day. 40 years of uneasy peace followed Oona's defeat, maintained only by the emergence of the Incarnations. This fragile calm was utterly destroyed by the Phyrexian Invasion during the multiversal march of the Machine event. The conflict forced species to cooperate in ways they had never considered, but it also exposed their deepest vulnerabilities. The cruel Lorwyn elves, once the de facto power, were nearly decimated. Their empire turned into Phyrexian power networks. Their arrogance and prejudice meant their completed kin used their innate cruelty to great effect, their behaviour hardly changed by the infection. The remaining untainted elves allied with the other species, making a desperate final stand at Lysalana. The Kithkin's thought weft was poisoned, with the glistening oil seeping into one Kithkin and subjecting the minds of all others to the corrupting voices of the Mother of Machines, forcing many to painfully cut themselves off from their communal web entirely. In Shadowmoor, the isolationist Kithkin were driven by a xenophobia so intense it turned against the ultimate outsiders, leading the final charge to crush ranks of Phyrexians underfoot. Even the ravenous Shadowmoor boggarts formed a furious vanguard, riding cavalry into the enemy lines and accepting massive casualties. Meanwhile, the arrogant Lorwyn-Merrow found their water-based security was an illusion, forcing them to flee to the deepest tunnels. Now, while present-day Lorwyn is at relative peace, the general chaos of the plane itself is still very much present. The transformation wrought upon the plane is reflected most clearly in the duality of its native peoples, twisting their core identities into their own terrifying mirror image. Let's take a look at some of the native people inhabiting Lorwyn-Shadowmoor to really understand how they are affected. In Lorwyn, the Kithkin are small, pastoral farmers living in communal clashlands, bound by the thought weft, an empathic web that fosters openness and collectivism, not to be confused with the concept of a hive mind. Their society is welcoming, even integrating other species, and they are naturally superstitious, regarding the appearance of greater elementals as great omens. Their tome, the Book of Kith and Kin, welcomes all. However, in Shadowmoor, they live in isolated downs behind wrought iron gates, their thought weft twisted into a mind weft that stokes paranoid fears of betrayal and demands absolute uniformity. The only exception to their profound isolation are their scarecrows, constructs made from the wood of dead tree folk that frequently slaughter their creators, a practice sustained only by a xenophobia that prevents them from seeking safer alliances. The social structure of Shadowmoor Kithkin is maintained by a grueling monthly ritual. A tribunal is held to determine their leader, or Saul. The process is a grueling expose of a person's deeds and secrets, which they willingly submit to. In a packed, tense hall, the chosen Kithkin is forced to witness the public airing of every private thought, every momentary lapse in conformity, and every suspicion held against them by the community. It is a ritual of forced purification through shame and self-incrimination. Once elected, the soul is led to and locked inside a tower with a panoramic view of their village, known as Inslinta. The soul is forever watching for any sign of crime or treason, a fate that is as much a punishment as a leadership role. When danger strikes, they will risk one of their own, imbuing a chosen hero with the community's full belief, rather than open their gates or seek outside alliances. The boggarts are chaotic, goblin-like creatures whose lives are dedicated to the pursuit of novel sensations. Their power grows with age, making the oldest among them, the revered aunties, the most magically potent. When a boggart dies, their bodies are placed in a swamp where they will integrate with the ecosystem. These swamps are highly magical, as are the flora and fauna. When resources are gathered from here, be it bones of relatives or a particularly cool stick, they become folky for their magic. In Lorwyn, boggart magic is ritualistic and organised, and death is celebrated as the ultimate new experience. They have since re-established their society after mass culling by the elves, developing new magics and recording them in a rudimentary pictographic language on bark and stone to convey simple messages such as danger, safety, or adventure awaits. In Shadowmoor, they have learned caution and established small, guarded territories. Here, their magic is chaotic and primal, and their greatest magical expression is the horrifying practice of cannibalizing their deceased kin to absorb their raw magical essence. The Shadowmoor aunties are fickle, cruel, and terrifying. These nomadic loners are known to spring arbitrary and bizarre tests on their victims, often with no correct answers. Imagine a terrified traveller approached by a hunched, iron-plated auntie who produces a rotten mushroom. She demands, "Tell me the name of the fish that forgot to be born." If the victim guesses incorrectly, the auntie will not kill them outright, but rather imposes an ironic and disturbing curse. This is not always the case. The auntie may also present them with a gift or boon, although the former is far more likely. The Merrow are merfolk who control the river and tunnel networks known as Merrow lanes, making them indispensable merchants and couriers. They possess glamours, a magic they use to change their appearance and voice. In Lorwyn, they are an aristocratic society, split into large, competitive, self-contained schools built on the back of fair trade and a neutral pleasantry. They are sticklers for equity and rules, some of which are arbitrarily designed, and they view wealth as a marker of success, but only if it is obtained by fair means. Lorwyn Merrow somehow manages to be both haughty and endlessly polite at the same time, using a form of vicious doublespeak that is indecipherable to land dwellers. Two competing elites from rival schools might meet at a riverbank storefront. Merrow A. My dear colleague, your shop is looking wonderfully sparse today. Do the locals truly appreciate your minimalist approach to display? Merrow B. But of course. Unlike those who must clutter their counters, my clientele understands that quality requires selective curation. One is not a magpie after all. To the errant observer, this is merely polite chatter about inventory. To the Merrow, this exchange is a viciously veiled and deeply personal insult. Merrow A is insulting the rival's lack of success by suggesting their sparse shelves are due to a lack of stock, not taste. Merrow B responds by calling Merrow A magpie, a lower caste scavenger who hoards worthless trinkets and lacks the discerning eye of true wealth, thereby escalating the insult to a commentary on lineage and social standing. In Shadowmoor, these opportunistic Merrow are notorious for their cons and swindling, using their glamours almost exclusively to run scams, change their voices to lure and control the weak-minded, and create illusions to sell fake wares, sometimes even charming a victim to toss themselves into the water to drown once a scam is complete. The Flamekin are passionate elementals of flame and living stone, deeply connected to the land. They value self-actualization and can communicate with greater elementals. In Lorwyn, they follow the path of flame, the ultimate form of dedication to their pursuit of understanding and self-actualization. This quest for understanding leads to a physical transformation in their flame. The path of flame has 3 distinct states of being, each requiring intense meditation to commune more closely with the flame within. First, Incendiator, the initial stage. The flame is internal, burning with a low, deep red colour, like embers beneath ashes. They are focused on inner reflection and soul-searching to understand their personal essence. Second, Blazeform, the transitional stage. The flame is externalized, burning with vivid red and yellow colors, moving with greater fluidity. This is the stage of travel and worldly knowledge, where they seek external experience to match their internal wisdom. Third, Soulstoke, the final stage. The flame is white hot, intense and profoundly stable, manifesting physically with red, yellow and white colors. They have achieved a deep harmony, becoming masters of their craft, be it smithing, investigation or magic. Their lives a testament to their unwavering self-knowledge. In Shadowmoor, the original Flamekin were cinders, skeletal, haunting husks that couldn't hold a flame, having been extinguished in an event known as the Extinguishing. Since the invasion, Rhymekin have emerged. These cold, heatless inversions who repress their burning emotions and turn toward cold logic. They seek self-actualization not through understanding, but through actively reshaping the world to fit their vision, often creating weapons imbued with icy magic to control the direction of Shadowmoor's future. The elves are idealistic lovers of beauty, their lives dedicated to achieving something meaningful. They are the most influential species on the plane. In Lorwyn, the elves were historically cruel eugenicists who aimed to cultivate beauty through the destruction of those deemed lesser, or eye-blights. Their power is now a shell of its former self, its aristocracy stagnant and hereditary, surviving only by maintaining a veneer of respectability. The highest-ranking perfects at the Dawn's Light Palace now rally support to end the existence of Shadowmoor entirely. They cultivate the lethal poison moonglow from the moonglove flower as a religious symbol of their enduring power. In Shadowmoor, the elves are protectors of beauty in the natural world, living in few but well-stocked safeholds. The value of a person is determined by their dedication to preserving beauty. Their revered bloom seekers study Lorwyn's cultures, returning with tales of beauty beyond the auroras. They collect the rare flower Dawnglove, which can be distilled into the priceless cure-all Dawnglow, which they rarely use due to its sheer beauty. The fairies are fickle, mischievous, and mysterious pranksters, largely unchanged across the aspects. They are born from flowers and sustain themselves with dream stuff, a sparkling energy distilled from the minds of sleeping creatures. Their society is now ruled by Marilyn from Glen Elendra, though a false queen, Aura, also holds court. Their magic centers around illusions and laws, utilizing sleep glamours to induce a sleepwalking state to steal information, and fairy rings, small circles of mushrooms or stones, that act as private teleportation waypoints. Giants are massive creatures who rarely interact with other species. Lorwyn giants are aloof nomads, their long periods of slumber known as name sleep, which is triggered by trauma or abundance and gives young giants their surnames. Their resting spots are marked by massive dolmens. Shadowmoor giants are moss-covered hibernators, lazier and more oblivious, often harnessing wild magic in awe-inspiring ways. Treefolk are the oldest creatures native to the plane, gaining sentience and mobility through an event called the Rising. Lorwyn treefolk range from the heroic Ash to the Luddite, metal-opposing Rowan treefolk, such as the fanatical Sunrise Break, and the masochistic Black Poplar. Shadowmoor treefolk are vengeful guardians of nature against the ravages of Shadowmoor's denizens, having lost much of their social nuance in favour of a more violent approach. The greater elementals are untamable, primal embodiments of ideas and concepts. Lorwyn elementals take on the appearance of different animals haphazardly stuck together. Shadowmoor elementals are terrifying visages of unsettling ideas made manifest, resembling nightmares born from the harsh environment. Finally, the changelings, shapeshifters born in the crystalline cavern Velis Vel, are recognisable by their opalescent skin. They are friendly allies, considered harbingers of good luck for their role against the Phyrexians. However, if they enter Shadowmoor, they become mimics, cruel creatures that mock victims by taking on the appearance of loved ones before delivering the final, agonizing blow. With that, our brief introduction to the history and creatures living in Lorwyn-Shadowmoor has concluded. The current age is one of tenuous peace. The cycle may be broken, but the duality endures, and the people of Lorwyn-Shadowmoor live forever haunted by the terrifying possibility of becoming their own twisted mirror image. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.